I've got the honor of announcing we have Mathew Mytka, who's one of the co-founders of Greater Than Learning online live. And I don't know, Mathew, whether I go to you, I can only see a video camera there, or I go to the actual presentation. I'm going to go to the presentation. That is a pre-record, and maybe Mathew can become available for us right after that presentation. So let's go to that pre-record now. I'll just take a moment to put that up.
It's Mathew Mytka, one of the co-founders of Greater Than Learning, and I have my co-founder here, Nathan Kinch. Really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk about the things that we're doing to you. And yeah, I'll give a quick intro. There's probably a bit of an origin story that Katina might have shared as part of this. And I've got an interesting background, lots of different variety in my career, my professional career. Little bit of an entrepreneur at heart, extreme sports stuff, early, school leaver or kicked out of school, and have really, that fork in the road early in my life, when I was about 19, got me questioning a lot of these things. Why is the world like it is? And, I ended up back at school, formal education, to finish off my high school and kind of start learning and really getting into trying to answer a whole bunch of questions. And I guess where I ended up was having questions around mainly surveillance. It was looking at surveillance and understanding that when people are watched, and people might be familiar with the concept of the panopticon, the idea that when people are watched, they change their behavior. And that really hit home for me. It was like, and I was, interested in studying, learning about propaganda and media communications and how it shapes people's perceptions. And as a result, I really had this broad hypothesis that this consistent increase in surveillance is modifying people's behavior to where we tend towards homogenous behavior, or like norms that are generally framed by a small group of people with all their biases and all the power relationships that result. And that kicked me off on a journey looking into data and IT and the web and how it works and these different things, and lots of different jobs and entrepreneurial pursuits in between. But I ended up at a startup called Mytka, which is kind of like digital identity, and that's where I met Nathan. We worked on some really exciting stuff there, and I later on left there and went on and did a couple of things, ended up at a head of product and growth at a cryptocurrency exchange. And Nathan was smooth talking me in the background ultimately to try and get me to join forces. We did, and we've ended up where we are today with Greater Than Learning. I'll hand over to you, Nathan, and you can talk.
Cool, man.
Maybe just switch off your because I don't think people are going to be able to see you right now. That breaks the flow because we wanted to be able to scroll through your LinkedIn profile. I guess the point of having this in the background is Nathan's got he's got a pretty diverse background experience as well that's really relevant to what we're doing and how we've converged to be building Greater Than Learning. And if you are interested, reach out on LinkedIn. It'd be great to connect. And in saying that, Nathan, maybe stop sharing and so people can see your lovely face.
Oh, I don't know about that. Hi, everyone. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here. This is going to be a super brief session, but we trust that it kickstarts a conversation that is valuable, meaningful, and engaging. Like Matt said, I've had lots of different interesting experiences over the last decade or so. To cut a very long story short, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a professional athlete. A recurring injury, potentially combined with other variables, meant that was not possible. I ended up building a startup that was predicting the propensity that elite athletes had to incur soft tissue injuries, became an entrepreneur in residence, got really interested in the personal information economy, the way that information asymmetry creates and sort of exacerbates power imbalances and the impacts that has on society, similar sort of stuff that Matt was talking about. And as Matt mentioned, we met whilst we were both working at a really cool company that was one of the very early personal information management startups. And whilst I was there, started developing some models and methods that myself and my wife hypothesized had some potential value, and we ended up building a company called Greater Than X. And the smooth talking I was doing was whilst I was the CEO of Greater Than X. I still am, in fact. We really wanted to get Matt to come over and join forces, and he did, and just immensely augmented what we were doing. We ended up building arguably the leading trust by design and data ethics services business globally. And more recently, we've transitioned our focus to greater than learning, which we, at this stage, speculate is something that has the potential to bring together many, many years of our collective experience, our point of view, and has the potential to really positively impact society. So with that said, what I might do is start sharing again, and we'll just take a few moments to talk through some of the key considerations and prioritizations for greater than learning, talk a little bit about the early company building and product development activities that we've been engaged in the hope that it provokes, inspires, or encourages some form of action that maybe you weren't considering before you took the time, invested the time, in fact, with us for this 15 or so minutes. So we're sharing once more. Not a bad cookie notice. We have to implement a new one. We've had to change vendors. And just really quickly on that, one of the things, and it might make sense to talk about this now, one of the things that we believe is that the future of organizations will be largely dependent on their trustworthiness, the qualities of trustworthiness. And really fundamental to that is an organization's openness and accountability. And part of our commitment to openness and accountability and a longer-term vision that we have for a truly inclusive and participatory governance model is opening up our key decision log. And so we make decisions in conjunction with our key stakeholders. And, so if you want to check that stuff out, how did we go about making the decision to choose a particular design pattern for cookie consent, which vendor, all that different type of stuff, you can see that in there. Back to it. What is greater than learning? Matt?
It's probably just worth just quickly mentioning that that key decision log is part of the work that we were doing to help operationalize data ethics in our services business with clients, companies like Autodesk, for instance. And we've taken a lot of that approach, and all the things that we were recommending to our clients, we're basically embedding into everything that we do with greater than learning. So Nathan, I'll let you continue now.
Yeah, no, that's a super point, mate. I think it's one of the things that we believe is a real significant issue is we frame it as the ethical intent to action gap, and in behavioral economics and different sort of fields of psychology, it's often referred to as just the intent action gap. But we focus more explicitly on the ethical intent to action gap and narrow down slightly further to the ethical intent to action gap in the context of organizations, companies, institutions. And basically what we mean by that is that an organization, a company, an institution explicitly communicates things that it will commit to, values, principles, whatever, yet consistently doesn't follow through. And so the gap is the gap between their stated intent and their actual behavior. And we observe that across jurisdictions and geographies, across industry contexts, far too consistently. And if you're familiar with different literature that focuses on trust, you might be aware that trust is at a measurable all-time low right now. And there's a pretty strong body of evidence to suggest that ethics is 3 times more important than competence when it comes to trust. And so it's actually this sort of ethical intent to action gap that has led us to this widespread state of distrust. And Greater Than Learning, which is a dedicated community and social learning platform for ethical change makers, was really founded on some of these beliefs, these principles, and these empirically backed perspectives that Matt and I have been developing over a number of years. Matt, I'll hand back to you and we can maybe talk through this a little more, talk about some of the specific stuff we've been doing and do a little goodbye before we have to wrap up.
Yeah, so I guess we've had originally when Nathan brought me into Greater Than X, it was to focus on building a product, because ultimately what I'd been chatting to him about during the whole of 2018 was, you're not going to be able to scale the services business because it's in such a niche area. It's hard to actually get people to have the perspective and get that perspective because of the empirical knowledge. And develop the skills as well. And then it's, secondly, in consulting businesses, in particular, you have a problem where organizations are more focused on the outcome that you're trying to get them to, and not on the process itself, which is actually where all the learning takes place. And as a result, we had an original concept for a product, and that got sidelined, and we focused on the services business, and then we transitioned earlier this year to pivoting completely our whole business to Greater Than Learning. And as a result, over the past 6 months, we've been kind of building this platform as we wrapped up the services projects with Greater Than X. And this is the focus of this is ultimately to help people learn. We've developed a unique micro learning model, or a pedagogical model that we use. I've got some experience in instructional design and curriculum design, and so all of our knowledge that we've got and our skills that we have are really kind of coming to life in this. And the Making Better Together thing is actually built around this idea that by working together and taking lots of small actions on a regular basis, we can have compounding effects. And this is a core part of the thesis and the hypotheses that we have. So people coming in, they're engaging in very practically focused micro-learning experiences that emphasize both knowledge acquisition and skills development in a social environment where there's a lot of interactions with other people. And we have these 4 values which really underpin what we're doing with connection, collaboration, commitment, and consequence. So that's kind of the underlying side of things. We'd love to basically, part of our strategy at the same time is we're all our vendors that we're using, like our hosting provider, WP Engine. We're saying, hey, here's free memberships. Come in and learn all this stuff so that you can make your stuff better. All our vendors that we're using for our plugins for WordPress, because we chose to build it on WordPress. So we're looking to lift a whole ecosystem up through this type of work. And not just that, all our past clients, And we've got this kind of tactic that we're going to be using where we want to help them make better. But if they're making statements that they have these values and they're not actually following through, we'll call them on it. And I think there's an element of brashness to that that is actually needed. I think, I come from a bit of an activist background, kind of ethical hacker to some degree. And, we need more people engaged in, kind of persistent, non-violent civil disobedience. That's pretty core to what we're doing with Greater Than Learning.
It's good context, mate, and I think it's powerful sort of sentiment to get close to ending on. So I suppose maybe one last thing to leave everyone with is, like, we fundamentally believe that, and some of these things sound cliche when you say them, and therefore we sort of have this bias towards action, but I'm going to say it anyway, that by working together, by aligning on values, by sharing responsibility for these tiny ethical actions that have a profound compounding effect, we can actually start making better together. We can start designing more socially preferable, more verifiably ethical and trustworthy systems of living, because this is broader than just quote unquote technology, the way that it's originally framed. So if everyone's interested, if any of you are interested, please reach out to us. We'd be very happy to make what we're doing available to you. And we're really excited to see where everything that all of you are working on right now or about to start working on might go in the future.
Yeah, good note to finish on. I mean, like, I reflect on myself coming into higher education as a mature age student. I was in my late 20s, 28, and when I saw the course, the public interest tech course, I was like, wow, I wish there was courses like that. So fantastic that ASU's got courses like that, and there's lots more trends in that direction. So I'm sure you guys are going to have a great discussion after watching this. We couldn't be there live with you, but hopefully we get the opportunity to connect in some other way.
So you can see there, friends, another way to actually apply your public interest technology is to think about future products. I don't know if Matthew's still online. Let me just have a quick look. He is. Mathew, did you want to unmute Mathew Mytka, if you can? I know I'm just coming off your video here with Nathan. Did you want to say a few words live?
Hi there.
Hey.
Thanks. I'm lucky. I've been in between the kids getting ready, and I've managed to just jump in and dial in, listen in on and off. Thanks for having us involved. I guess looking at that video, it's good that I'm kind of in public interest tech and not in public speaking. So that's
you did great.
Kind of, yeah, good thing for me to maybe fine tune my skills. I'm really interested in like, what do people think about the idea of coming together and taking small actions on a regular basis to catalyze this change that I guess everyone is really looking for, be that, in technology, in politics, in our economy, in the way that we interact with our natural environment. So we're really, excited to understand how other people are thinking about working together in these areas.
Does anyone have any comments? Salah, Yati, Martin, Perez, Comiso, does anyone have any thoughts? Have they thought about this, first of all, as a mechanism to contribute to an existing community of practice? Mathew and Nathan are offering their testbed and their product, really, to explore how we could do ethics by design in practice in an organization, and to also inspire feedback. I think that's one of the most important parts that perhaps we could play in the future. I thought, Mathew, maybe I'd even expose our students in co-designing the future to the product and the software, just to see how it might be used during a development process. How do you see it integrating into academia, Mathew?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've had interest from some, I guess, more formal kind of educational institutions, firstly in vocational education, which is kind of, I guess, on the practical side. Ideally, this augments the work that students and institutions like ASU are doing in these areas of focus. There's much more focus on ethics, privacy, data protection, shifting away from outdated metrics like gross domestic product and over to looking at like, how do we focus on well-being? So I think in terms of the broader trends, it's very relevant to the discussions and the way that universities might be evolving their curriculums. So we would love to be able to offer heavily discounted, if not free, accounts to students that are interested in learning all these things, because we've got our material, like our course, all our knowledge, our toolkits, I guess, to use that turn of phrase, that people will be able to learn. But at the same time, we've got other partners that we're working with in privacy, data protection, privacy by design, leadership, in data science, that will be offering their courses in various ways. So there'll be a huge amount of diversity in the material that people can engage with. And the focus of the model that we're using as well is about immediately transitioning from learning a concept or this set of concepts to practically applying it in a very short period of time. And there's failure designed into that whole process. As anyone that works in education, you have to design for failure. That when people make mistakes, that's when you learn. So it's a good opportunity to work with universities in that type of way.
Mathew, I know we've caught you at a busy time, the school run in the morning, but I did see the customers like IAPP. For those of you who don't know, it's a privacy organization. I saw the Ethics Center. I saw so many of Australia's top companies, but also international, Telefonica, Autodesk. So you're obviously doing something right. And just the emphasis and the authenticity of you and the co-founder, Nathan, that says something about company ideals. So what I wished by integrating you this week, and I shout out to Nicole Stevenson for even making me aware of your existence in Australia, though you're playing internationally, is the fact that students don't have to necessarily think of just the academic path. They can take their academic learning and then they can build something. I'm hoping that this talk inspires them to consider an entrepreneurial route as well, given ASU's focus on the entrepreneurial creativity and being number one for innovation. So Mathew, I'll let you go and say a big thanks. And I know if you could put maybe your email, if appropriate, or a handle somewhere in the participants chat window, then our faculty and students and listeners from abroad can get in touch with you and Nathan.
Sure, that I can definitely do that. And absolutely, higher education can be extremely practical in focus, and it's best done when people are practicing all the theories that they're learning.
And that goes to something actually Toby Shulriff said, who's working for a large organization that focuses on many things but violence against individuals. That's something that Shalan Giotishi, who's based out of DC, also talked about, this notion of how can we get assessment and identification for the credentials that we actually have, the implicit and tacit knowledge that we gain through a blockchain kind of idea. I think there's a lot of overlap with our morning discussions, Mathew. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you, my friend. You too.